According to UK Maritime Trade Operations, there have been 16 reports of attacks on vessels here since the war began. And in Dubai, a British man has been detained for allegedly filming Iranian drones. It's been another dramatic day as this war approaches its third week.
Iranian state television relayed Mujtaba Khamenei's words, but not his voice. Yet his statement was no less powerful in sounding a call to arms.
Dear brothers of the armed forces, the demand of the people is to continue this effective defense that is making the enemy regret its actions. The lever of blocking the Strait of Hormuz should definitely be used.
And in the new Supreme Leader's name, missiles of vengeance, we're told, launched against targets in Israel and Iran's neighbors in the Gulf. He's leading a regime from the shadows, not seen since the strike on the compound that triggered all-out war. But his is a presence that looms over the world. Most immediately here, Allahu Akbar! In the dead of night in the Persian Gulf. This video of an attack on a tanker off the Iraqi coast was apparently carried out and filmed by Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps. At dawn, the violence is the physical embodiment of the Supreme Leader's statement on television to block the Strait of Hormuz, choking the world's supply of oil. Tonight, Israel claimed it was winning the war.
We are crushing the terrorist regime in Iran. We are striking and crushing its agent Hezbollah in Lebanon with an unprecedented combination of forces between Israel and the US. We have achieved enormous achievements that are changing the balance of power in the Middle East and beyond.
But every day, Iran still targets the energy infrastructure of its Gulf neighbors.
It's very good to see you.
Welcome.
Including the United Arab Emirates. Lana Nusebi is a Minister of State for the UAE.
How much of a shock has it been that Iran has targeted this country?
I think it was a shock, not only the extent of the attacks, but the fact that Iran has drawn the wider neighborhood of peacemakers in the region into this conflict that it is in with the United States and Israel. Right before the outbreak of this conflict, the UAE was actively engaged in diplomatic efforts and supporting those diplomatic efforts. But today we are actively engaged in the self-defense, in the collective self-defense of our region, but also of our country and of its population and its resident community.
It's not just the UAE's oil traffic that's being targeted. The other pillars of its economy, like tourism, hotels, the airport, have also been hit.
We were clear prior to the attacks on the UAE that the UAE would do everything as its inherent right in collective self-defense to protect its citizens and its residents and its community.
Are retaliatory strikes off the table?
We will reserve the right for collective self-defense under international law, and that includes all options, economic, political, within the guidelines of international law.
But as America targets Iran, Donald Trump, just like Benjamin Netanyahu, says the war is being won.
The situation with Iran is moving along very rapidly. It's doing very well. Our military is unsurpassed. There's never been anything like it. Nobody's ever seen anything like it.
And few have seen images like this. There are so many astonishing pictures in this war, many captured by members of the public. But in the UAE, extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures. This is footage filmed on a phone by a passerby of a fire burning in Dubai following an Iranian attack. But laws in the UAE threaten a jail sentence for anyone sharing pictures of a strike or its aftermath.
How does the UAE justify that?
In order for everyone to feel safe It's important at this time that the information is credible and the sources are reliable. That is the basis of the legislation that has come into play in this state, which is obviously a tense time. But I am aware there have already been some violations of this law.
I mean, we understand that he is a 60-year-old Briton in his 60s who's been arrested as a result of this. A holidaymaker or an expat, you don't have any details, any more details?
I don't have any of those details. Due process will be followed, and this kind of filming puts yourself in harm's way.
But if you're just an innocent tourist, or me as a journalist, and I see something quite extraordinary, the aftermath of something, a drone attack or whatever, and I innocently pick up my phone, it seems a little bit over the top to arrest that person, potentially have them face 2 years in jail.
Look, actually, if you look at legislation around the region in this state of crisis, if you even look at legislation in contexts such as Ukraine, this legislation is quite common. We put out public warnings. We ask people not to do things. Unfortunately, unless there is strict legislation and guidelines in place, a lot of people continue to do those things.
You believe this law is fully justified? That someone can simply take a picture and perhaps go to jail?
I don't think the law states that someone can take a picture and go to jail. It's very specifically describing taking pictures of missile interceptions and drone interceptions. I know you and your family and myself and my family would want to be safe, and to do that you need to follow the guidelines. The law will be applied for everyone's safety, along with all the other measures we have taken to keep this community safe. Yes.
How best to manage a war, how best to keep people safe. The UAE Minister of State there, Lana Mousabbeh. Well, in the last few minutes, the US military says a rescue mission is underway after it lost a military aircraft in friendly airspace over Iraq. Tom Bateman is live in Washington for us. Tom, what's the latest on this?
Well, Clive, this started as an unconfirmed report that 2 aircraft were involved in this in an incident over western Iraq. Now, those unconfirmed reports suggested that one of the aircraft at least had gone down. And we've just had a statement from US Central Command who have confirmed that an aircraft has been lost over western Iraq, saying it went down there the second they say landed safely. Now, they say the loss involves a refueling aircraft. This is a KC-135, a very big refueling aircraft. They say that rescue efforts are currently ongoing into this incident, but crucially they stress that this was not due to hostile fire or friendly fire, they say, and they're currently gathering more information. So that is going to be currently being absorbed at the Pentagon and at the White House before they try and reach the families of these crew members. One of those unconfirmed reports suggesting there would have been 6 crew on that refueling aircraft, and all at a time that we have seen so far during the war in Iran the deaths of 7 US service personnel, and the Pentagon having admitted in the last couple of days that the number of wounded so far in the war has been much higher than they had initially suggested, with 140 American service personnel having been wounded so far. They say most of those returned to service, but at least 8 still currently seriously wounded. And with news of this lost aircraft, Americans will be taking this news tonight in terms of a war that so far Donald Trump is appearing to lose control of, particularly when it comes to the economic grip that the Iranians have over the course of this war.
Tom, thank you for that. Tom Bateman there live in Washington. Well, back in Iran, the US-Israeli strikes have displaced an estimated 3.2 million people. That's according to the United Nations Refugee Agency. And the US and Israel have continued to strike Iranian targets. US Central Command today released these pictures of strikes. Dan Johnson has more from the city of Van in Turkey, near the border with Iran. He's been speaking to some of those who've left the country to escape the bombing.
The train from Tehran was running late, but its passengers were just relieved to reach Turkey. After a journey of 26 hours, these families have left behind Iran, but they still carry the stress of war.
We saw some bomb and I heard it. The sound was very horrible.
Mustafa has got his wife and kids to safety.
The United States and Israel put us into this war.
You want it to stop?
Yes.
I don't believe they can win.
Hussein, an accountant, is heading to Canada.
I hope the war will be ended soon, because you see, my country is a beautiful country. They are destroying the country. For what reason, I don't know.
For everyone who's willing to speak, there's someone else who says, no, I'm sorry, I just can't take the risk. Or there's what they say on camera and then what they say off it. People are still really fearful of reprisals. And that's not just about them returning to Iran, possibly at some point in the future. They fear being targeted, even here in Turkey or further afield.
These two science graduates from Canada were visiting relatives when they were trapped, first by protests, then the war.
There are bombs from midnight until the early morning close to us. There is nothing to warn us the bombs are coming. There are no facilities to protect people, to save their lives. It's very stressful, but we are really optimistic about the end of the war.
Many whispered voices here are calling for the regime to go. There is hope of a brighter future, and there's also defiance.
Iran is my country. I love my country.
So you will be back?
I will be back, certainly.
Even if the war's still going on?
Even if the war. I use the same route going back to my country.
Whether that is possible and what sort of country the train heads back to depends on the course of this conflict. Dan Johnson, BBC News in southeast Turkey.
Well, as we've been hearing, Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu says the joint US military campaign is crushing Iran. Tonight, Israel has begun a fresh wave of attacks on the capital Tehran, as well as continuing its strikes on the Iranian-backed group Hezbollah on the second front of the war in Lebanon. More on that in a moment, but first, let's go to Lucy Williamson, who's live in Jerusalem. Lucy, Benjamin Netanyahu giving his first press conference since this war began. What's he been saying?
Well, it was a fairly triumphalist tone struck by Benjamin Netanyahu in that press conference. Listing what he said was that all the strategic gains made in the war, despite the fact that the regime change he's been calling for hasn't happened. He talked about the enormous achievements that were changing the balance of power in the Middle East and beyond. This is no longer the same Iran, no longer the same Middle East, and this is not the same Israel, he said. And there are some Israelis who will hear that and will hear in it their prime minister saying that Israel has achieved what it set out to achieve in this war, and perhaps gesturing towards the end of that war, even while Iran's regime is still in place and while Israel is still fighting on a second front against Hezbollah in Lebanon. And on that tonight, the Prime Minister said that Israel was committed to completing that task, saying that Hezbollah would pay a very heavy price for its aggression.
Lucy, thank you. Lucy Williamson, our Middle East correspondent there in Jerusalem. Well, Benjamin Netanyahu also says he warned Lebanon's government that Israel would act to disarm Hezbollah on the ground if Beirut failed to do so itself. It's targeted more sites in the capital, and it says that those are associated with Hezbollah, and it's issued a new and unprecedented evacuation warning, telling all residents south of the Zahrani River to leave their homes immediately, an order which covers hundreds of thousands of people. Well, this week, our correspondent, Wira Davis, has spent time with civil defense units in the town of Nabatea, which has come under constant Israeli attack and which is now part of the new evacuation zone. Wira joins us now from Beirut. Wira.
Yeah, Clive, well, tonight Israel is intensifying its campaign and tightening its